Oh, wait, we are live. I probably don't have a delay on. That's probably bad. So, might do that. Or do I have a delay? Oh, I do have a delay. Okay. Yeah, apologies for me just staring into space for a little bit. I was figuring focus settings. Crap. Oh no, it just 1, 2. There we go. Okay. 1, 2. Both work. We're just about ready to go live then. Three, two, one. Okay. Play capture. Reactivate. Welcome everybody. The sights and sounds of the inner west. Excited to be back. Excited to be, yeah, home. Feels good. I'm pretty tired of America. It's a grind out there. at least when you're in the casinos playing all-nighters in the dead of winter, never seeing the sun. So it's good to be waking up at 8 a.m. and walking my dog and just getting long, sunny days again. Going to be a fun holidays. Got a lot gearing up in terms of just coaching and putting everything that I've been working on the last 2 years together. Couldn't be more hyped. The main challenge is getting into like a regular grind in Australia. Like, I wish I could just be playing like US pools or whatever. That'd be sick. Real good stuff online. There's great live games here, like super high stakes, but I'm just not diving into like 25, 50, 50, 100 over the holidays, but that's sort of the plan for next year. Right now, just to get into the flow of studying, because I like it, it seems the most fun, and I think the games are still beatable, I am going to play on Ignition. As far as I know, I haven't been keeping an eye on it. There probably are still a lot of bots and collusion and shit there. They never really fixed it. But that's unfortunately the state of the games in unregulated markets. So for me, it's either live casino games, which are great, and they're definitely the best option, but they're not always the softest, and I hate casinos, generally speaking. I do not like spending time in a casino. I would pay to not spend time in a casino, but there's obviously an amount where it's just necessary. In Australia, the balance is a bit better. Like, people tend to schedule games, and you're not even necessarily playing past like midnight or whatever, unless there's a really big spot at the table. So it's a bit more sustainable, play 2-3 days a week from like noon till dinner, and if I can do something like that, I think it'll be good. What I learned in the States is that I don't have to, and I'm not interested in grinding graveyard shift ever. It is just too big of a cost to my life. I got into poker to obtain freedom and enable the lifestyle that I want to live. And what I found was, like, I was grinding all-nighters, exhausted all the time, not investing into creative endeavors or doing things that I wanted to do long-term. I wasn't spending much time with friends and family, and like, ironically, if my friends wanted to go out, I wouldn't go with them because I needed to be like playing high-stakes poker or whatever. So what I found was I was disconnected from everything I was actually playing for in order to be able to pursue, and I was entirely immersed in the aspects of the game that you kind of want to overcome. They're like the obstacles, right? Part of why live poker is soft is it's not a pleasant place to be for most people. It can be the most profitable thing to do is to follow around degenerate gamblers as late as possible in the night and just kind of mirror their lifestyle and take advantage of it. That doesn't mean you will become a degenerate, but it means that you have to pay the same price they do of living a really unorthodox lifestyle and cutting yourself off from like most people and regular society. So if you find yourself at a place in your life where you love that, or that's what your friends are doing and you're just excited to do it, or getting like $20,000 to $100,000 together is life-changing and you love poker, I would say live in the States, straight up to like 2040, playing till 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning is an incredible way to make hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. But there's a huge cost to that lifestyle. It assumes you're going to maintain that balance instead of self-destructing, and you probably have better options. You probably have better options. There's also more slow and steady ways. You don't have to go all or nothing. You can work around, balance out down that path, or you can play, 1 day a week. There's ways to offset that. But I'm talking about maximizing the earn there. I am trying to destroy the brain worm in my head that says I should sacrifice as much as I can to maximize my earn. I'm trying to destroy the brain worms in my head that say, like, this is fleeting, the opportunity is going to run out, there's this urgency, you have to play, force yourself to play. Fuck all that. Like, I'm not interested. I'm interested in playing when I want to play, how I want to play, and making a bunch of money. That obviously means I'm paying attention to these spots, I'm going to take some spots, but right now I want to basically maximize my poker round in terms of learning and growth and enjoying it, and taking the good spots that are available to me in Australia that I enjoy playing. So that might mean playing more heads up, exploring some more tournaments, probably focusing on like live poker and that whole dimension, but then also like steadily playing probably Ignition Online just to get in more hands, do more study, and just be the best player and coach I can be. Because when you just pursue caching knowledge for EV and you play a bunch but you stop working on your game, you kind of actually lose the clarity and the conviction and the edge that like got you there in the first place. So there's a lot of just, even if the games aren't good, you should be playing, studying, learning. Then when they're good, you go print. But if you're leaning into max print, you will stop learning. You inevitably, to make as much money as possible, you have to sacrifice everything else. So So yeah, I'm just talking about putting that in balance, right? Because obviously, within reason, you maximize your own. It's just you have to include these other dimensions that aren't reducible to one number, like life satisfaction and connection and community and all of that. But I found in myself, and I see it in other people, there's massive diminishing returns. Like you can get so much payoff just by playing your A game when you want to, that there's no point playing like your bottom 20% of volume. You know, just keep cutting out the bad volume and add a bit more good volume until the bulk of your volume is good volume. And now you're happy. Now you don't have to like rush or hope to get lucky to escape the grind that is your life. If you can just in this moment lock into like flow and fun and presence and learning and taking the next step from where you are and just seeing what happens, it'll be kind of natural and it'll be kind of exciting. You just have to accept all of the possible consequences and the perceived risk goes away a lot. But it's when you're there suffering, trying to push through, that there's this urgency and this need to escape it, which makes you just like lash out and be all irrational or hate the grind. And then you either stop playing or you start playing badly, and it's just like you stop doing the whole thing. It becomes really myopic, and like you have to just trade everything off instead of just committing to what you're actually just going to do, you know? Because you will not be happy like reaching high stakes poker or winning, like having $1 million in your bank account, if the way you got there was disconnection and suffering and pain. You don't just get to like cash that in to fix that problem. It's like that's a burden, right? You actually sacrificed and lost everything you gave up to get there. You actually did that damage to yourself to suffer through it. You can't use the money to like buy back the time. There's just no point. So why hurt yourself getting to the finish line? So I'm going to play Ignition. I'm going to play Ignition today. Yeah. Hey Luke, I'm back in Oz. Hey Nick Vino. I went to Katz's. Katz's was good. I'll cover the US trip at some point. I don't like posting too much just like vanity social media. Like, I mean, if I just posted a highlight reel of every meal I ate, it would be pretty unbearable. Like, it would also explain why I'm not richer than I am. It's just, the US is so expensive for like not great food, but then also the good food I had in America was pretty insane. But I'm just really lucky in Australia. It's like everything is half price and like twice as good. The food is fucked over there on the coasts. Okay, just loading tables, and then we will pull up the monitor. Yeah, I'll recap the US trip, but the US trip it wasn't super eventful monetary wise. I learned a lot that I'm excited to talk about in terms of like principles, the reality of the US scene, my own relationship to life balance and stuff, I guess, because that is really what has been standing out to me as like a coach or like a public figure in poker that other people don't talk about, is just the costs of it, or the poker lifestyle, or not even just like life balance, but like using poker as an enabler to actually live exactly how you want. People don't tend to talk about the bad, or they talk about it kind of like a joke. A big check raise here to fold out some backdoor flush draws. They did bet large on the flop. I think it's a good barreling hand, so Problem is they have like all the 5-4 off, but I still have that. I think this is just still my best bluffing hand. It's a really wild call to me. Like, that's the stuff that's like... These are the weird ignition spots. Those are the spots where... Look, here we are. We're playing anonymous online poker on Ignition. We run a check raise bluff. Is the line good? You can approach it by like a GTO neutral framework, or you can commit, which still takes a process of learning. Or you can kind of... We start studying things in terms of like formation and spots and line, like the thing on the hole. Like, we were blind against blind. It was a low board. He bet big on the flop. I check raised and I barreled. And he called not the best bluff catcher. He called a hand that implies like he's actually calling most of his bluff catches. Like, he's going to call, he calls that, he's calling like every 6. Or it's like a GTO bot that's just like randomizing or something. But you need to actually break down the spots and like start coming up with positions on that, you know? Like, you can't get an answer in the micro, and you're fighting over like scraps of big blinds on average. So you need to systematize it and make it a process instead of being results oriented in this environment. Okay, I'm going to take my very worst pocket pair and bluff it. We take it down. One simple mindset thing is you want like bluffs and value in every line, right? Like, so you ask yourself, you know, how much am I betting? What am I betting for value? Those type of questions. So you should never get to a river where it's just like been checked around multi-way and just like never bluff or never consider bluffing. You know what I mean? So that's a simple thing to look at in terms of mindset or process or how you're playing the game. Are you asking the relevant questions? Are you missing relevant decision points? Or are you worrying too much about decision points that either don't matter or that you can't answer right now, that you can only answer by taking time away from the table, having a big picture view of it? Because you don't want to worry about any of these spots. You don't want to sweat them in the moment. You just want to engage in your process and make the best decision you can and study it later and maybe see there's a new process, or maybe see you had the right idea but missed something. And, you know, that's all it is. Here I ISO a fish, the low board. We have a pocket pair, we want to get paid. You want to have your like standard sizing type ideas, think about what you're targeting. Like, the smaller I go, the more he floats, the less I get paid. The bigger I go, the more value I get. And if I bet 3 more big blinds on the flop, the next pot's bigger, so a half pot bet is also bigger. So you end up putting like another 12 or 20 big blinds over 3 streets in if you go bigger. But on the other hand, maybe he folds ace high if I go half pot instead of going small. All that I just said, all those things are kind of true, but all this is noise in the terms of making like a decision in the moment. There's no way for you to try to like piece all of that together in real time and arrive at an answer. So that's why we have standards and heuristics, and we commit to certain sizings, and we play with those restrictions, and then we get clear on why we made the decision, and we focus on that process, we focus on that reasoning, we focus on the information we're working from to arrive at a conclusion. When you lock that in, and you just have this clarity of worldview, you understand what your decisions are grounded in. They took these actions. We know people tend to bluff too much here. He's a fish, and I've learned from experience that fish tend to do this, or when they bet small, they're always weak, and therefore I do this. The more standard that becomes, the more you know why, the more you know the reasoning, the easier it is to know where the hinges are, where the exceptions are, where you should bluff catch more or less, where you should bluff catch against this guy and fold against this guy, even if they took the same line. You understand how to compare these things and make different decisions. So you play the best you can. You review your decisions and your process in the sessions you play, and you see, can you do better? Here's a very interesting one. I'm actually going to just block bet because I don't think they're going to like rebluff for me enough. And I do think they'll call something like sevens. The shove is really gross. I'm just going to fold because I do think, especially when they went bigger pre-flop, they can have a lot of ace-x. But this is another really interesting spot, right? So let's just again talk about from a review process. Whether or not I'm making the perfect decision here, I can look down, go, okay, I bet big. My plan was to fold if they raise, and I felt that. I didn't even have to know that consciously. Like I was min betting to fold if he shoved on this board. I can now tell you why. I can come up with reasons, but in real time, the reasoning is very often sort of tilted or skewed or like more like a justification. It's not like scientific. When you study it later, I can go, okay, here's what I thought, here's what I felt. Why did I think that? And now can I come up with like a counter argument, or can I see like, oh, like in this other, I'm saying this thing here, but I wasn't saying this thing in in a really similar spot. I only focus on the value when they shove straight boards, and I ignore the bluffs, and I focus on the bluffs but ignore the value when they shove on other boards. There I'm seeing where I'm like making shit up and projecting in my head. You need a systematic process to cut through that noise, and it can be as simple as asking yourself questions or talking with friends. It depends on the level of precision you need, because ultimately you're just trying to make more accurate decisions, better decisions, and that's a mix of needing more information, taking that in and synthesizing it. But in real time, it's literally just doing the best thing you can right now. And I think you should be able to know exactly why you're doing it, even if the reason is, I don't know any better, I'm range betting a third. And then you can go, what's wrong with range betting a third? If you try to play every hand perfectly, you learn nothing because everything is like on the table. There's like no feedback. So you want to standardize your game and work on specific lines, specific spots, specific principles, specific elements and dimensions of a thought process. Add complexity systematically. Because wherever you're at, there's a poker game right now you can like sit down at and make money if you want tilting. If you just sit down, play a strategy that you know wins, and play it well, and stay calm. There is a game right now you can win online. You don't have to get better at poker to do that, probably. I mean, some of you maybe, but I doubt most people watching here can't beat 5-L online if they're patient. Can't beat 200-L live if they're patient. So if you're like, oh, it's taking too long, you know, I need to move up, like, yeah, then there's other dimensions to the game, but I'm not going to harp on those too long. Everyone knows the break of life. My conclusion from the US tour is not worth pushing things. You think you agree with that? That isn't actually my conclusion. My conclusion is don't push the wrong things. Don't push the wrong things. Don't push hollow, vapid consumerism and mindless profit and growth. I don't regret the US trip at all, but what happened was I played 100 hours and then went, I'm not enjoying this. I'm going to focus on the sort of learning and creative project around this and actually like exploring my time here, you know, talking with people, looking at the US drones over New Jersey. It was a wild time. Really weird period to be there and just like soak that culture in. I want to push things pretty hard. It's like I almost compulsively go against the grain. Like I'm a little contrarian. I'm very anti-authoritarian. I'm pretty anti-status quo. So there's a lot of things I do want to push in a way, but I feel like I'm being semantic with language here because when I say push or force, like again, I don't really want to convince anyone of anything. I just don't want to help perpetuate bullshit, and that means occasionally like pissing people off because you're saying uncomfortable things, you know. Like I'm willing to be uncomfortable and work hard to create something worthwhile, to like create community or meaningful change or like benefit people. I'm not willing to sacrifice chunks of a really good experience of life and miss many months of my puppy growing up to try and make a couple hundred extra bucks an hour for 200 hours or whatever. That's partially because I'm fortunate enough that like I have better opportunities than that ultimately, or I have opportunities to make good money doing things that I care about a lot more. Maybe not even this, maybe not the same amount of money, probably like less hourly, but it depends how you view it, right? It really depends. Like hourly isn't the way to view it. It's the quality of your moment-to-moment like lived experience. It's like who I'm going to be 10 years from now. And if I just stick down the maximizing poker EV road, it's not going to look good. It's not going to look good for me. It just gets boring. Meanwhile, like teaching other people to do that without wasting time is exciting to me because I know what a grind it can be without having to be. The 9-5, I just see it and I see raise or call options. Depends how you want to mix it. On this turn, this is a betting hand for sure. So I'm raising a lot of gut shots that connect. I'm raising a lot of straight draws that connect. When they hit the 7, I have a pair now a lot of the time. So much equity improving. They've got a bunch of naked top pair that isn't super thrilled, and a bunch of other hands that can fold. You can say, I have a pair, I could check and win, but unless I'm checking to call rivers or like bluff raise rivers, I'm just giving them way too easy of a time to realize their equity, to hit their cards, to just check and win. Or to, just have pocket jacks and just check and win river. Like, look at all of those hands in the middle that can fold. So another thing like breaking down a bluff psychology, I mean, you can just look at the sim and see how it goes. But, like, oh, is solver right? Do people view it this way? Just look at the actual hands and be like, are they calling down all of the second pair? Are they calling down every top pair? If I face this line, what am I seeing? What do I think they're doing? And, if you just start with that sort of reflection, in addition to a solver framework, right? You look at the mathematical balance, you look at the market perception on both ends, and you play both sides. That's how you get to a really, really, really elite level. And you can just view the whole game that way, especially online, like systematizing it. Live, the imbalances are more egregious, spots are a little more unique. But like you can also have like sort of systematic principles, and like your imbalances can just be, more extreme. That's a pretty good flop, and they're just like leading big into me. And now we boat up. Feel pretty good about my hand, not gonna lie. And now our hand's invulnerable, and we're gonna have a pot-sized bet left on the river. And nothing to do but shove. I overbet the king and still have a pretty nutted hand. We get paid on the top. I like getting paid on the top. King deuce betting small for value against ace high. Note that the lower your pair is, the more you want them to fold like just random bullshit 2-over cards. We get paid on the bottom right. And they had, yeah, pair plus straight blocker. That's interesting. Oh, let's not leave the client. Okay. This is kind of a weird spot. The small lead is really weird, but we just have a pair, and they really can't have anything. It's such a weird spot. That should be a good card for me, because they're not really going to bet the ace-x. And then with the deuce, I think I have enough showdown, but it is kind of interesting. Would they fold an 8 now is the question, and of course if I go big enough, you'd expect so. I have many flushes. So this is one where like this is worth thinking about. Right now I feel indifferent, but it's not indifferent. It's better to bet or it's better to check. And the more you can have an answer for that you actually believe in, the better. Yeah. See, this is the weird shit. This is the weird shit. Limp call 4-5 suited, sure, that's fine. But then like check call, bet small, check ace river. That felt like a bot to me. It feels like a bot. That doesn't feel like the sort of thing fish actually do. Can't prove it. I'm not working with any groups who are studying this full time at the moment. I'm having to do my own research. But these are the things that are good to know. Missed bet against the fish there. Hey, Andy Romero. I'm bound by a handshake non-disclosure agreement in terms of just all game stuff. I try, like, I'm streaming Ignition or whatever. Online is what it is, but generally speaking, I try not to give away the actual best spots to be playing to my clients. If I'm promoting, I'm never gonna falsely endorse something as like a bad opportunity. But when it comes to like a good specific game for like a poker room in America or something like that, I'm probably not going to just like spill the beans publicly. It's like the single most valuable thing you have as a player. Um, I'd say the US is just really good in general. You know, you want games with like less pros and more money and like more interest in poker. And then usually, once you've heard of it, more pros start coming in. But everywhere in the States is pretty sweet. Probably not literally everywhere, but you know. Like Florida, New York, if you know where to go. There's a bunch of weird casinos in different like little micro regions. LA, hit and miss. Most places that don't have good casino games have good at home games, but home games are fucked. So I will say, like, I haven't seen a 10-20 game in America where I thought there was more than one like legitimate professional at the table. Until you get to the biggest game in the room, 2040 plus. Hey Jordan, been a while, man. Been a while. I've been bouldering like mad. How do I put like a bot alert thing? Where's the? I can a donk up here with the Jack 8. I think this is my check raise hand. Got him. Got him. Overcard river, not great, but I think this hand's bettable. We just want ace high to call sometimes. Better king. That's... If you never just get called by better, you're not betting thin enough. There's a lot of guys live, right? Or just like this is like the net mindset in general. Like think about how easy, how low energy this thought process is. Can he have better? Yes. I don't bet. Like, you get to the river, and there's guys live who are just thinking, is it like, can I get called by better? So they're only really betting like top pair, really strong kicker, unless they like look at you and think you're weak and you took a BS line. And then they're probably going to bet small, and that because they can't really imagine you bluff catching. So they just like bet like these sort of crying like face up sizes of I'm never bluffing, I'm only betting strong hands, but I don't want you to like hero fold. That's just not how it really works. Poker is a lot more about like swinging, and it is a lot more like if they're not calling worse, you just bluff more. What's this shit? That's a weird one. So weird. I don't like this at all. Because like again, they keep showing up with randomly strong hands. Like we're just gonna see King 10 here. If I see 5s or like 8s, I get really mad. Like, what the heck? Tunes. Boom, 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 boom. Like, yeah, but so here's the other thing with the bots, right? Whether or not this player is a bot, if I know they're a bot and I don't just assume they're a fish like blindly, this like profile, you can't make up for playing 85% of hands. I just need to like not give them credit to have value when they don't have value. So you can, especially on Ignition where you can see the whole cards 24 hours later, any pattern that's fucking you up, you can literally look at the pattern. Like you can literally just see what they had. So if you're not willing to do that work, I don't know what to tell you. But like they're just giving info away out there. Tell me how the audio is.
Converse look like they've had a hard life. I love them anyway. Pull up at the garage, you can hear the bass. Trevor tried to tell us turn it down. Fucking millions, babe. Potty mouth, yeah, isn't that so? I know killers in the streets, but I ain't really.
Let's say like the metagame, I don't know where the evolution came from exactly. Partially CFPs, partially just people studying and learning, partially bots making it messier. But the meta got it got more complicated. It used to be that mostly people were either playing very ABC or they were just following like similar lines. Nowadays you see a lot more creativity with sizings and stuff, which just means there's more, it's a little bit harder to distill down to like super predictable patterns. You don't want to confuse that for there not being patterns and opportunities and imbalances. Like the fact is, they are there, and then the art or the profession of being a poker player is to like sort of solve the puzzle to see where are they, as much as you can. But then you take the best spots you can, as long as they can. You lean into them as hard as you can to sustain them. That means trying to get good seats. It means playing when games are good. But it also means thinking in terms of 5-10 years, or poker in the context of your lifetime. Like being able to, like, let's assume that most people who are interested enough in a game like poker to succeed at it, you're interested in like money, or at least financial freedom, like thriving within the system. If you have a sort of mindset like that, if you can sort of see the future a little bit and you know how to invest, or you know how to start a business, you know how to like create value and market yourself, or just, you know, play a hell of a lot of poker or trade or whatever, you're gonna have a lot of money at some point. You don't wanna like be so jaded or like sick of poker that you don't just go and play like good high stakes tournaments at that point. You know, what I'm saying is poker can have EV that lasts a lifetime as long as you keep a relationship with the game where you enjoy it. That's not true for everyone, right? Like, it is not a given that at the end of poker you'll be richer, healthier, and happier. That is not a given. I guess I'm not raising the min bet. This is another weird line, right? So why this is weird to me is when fish like limp call and then they lead here, they tend to be weak. And then when people bluff raise, they tend to be very airy or not. So this is weird for a fish to do, because I haven't really like faced this like click back almost ever, but I can also see why it would make sense if this was like a fish bot who's doing the opposite. So very sus, very sus. I would expect we're going to see some 10x in there, and we're going to see bluffs, basically. That would also make sense for a fish to do, so seeing one hand never proves anything, and therefore the bots can stay on ignition. Yeah. But what I am saying is that there's a high probability that that's something weird I should be noting. You know what I mean? The beauty of having a HUD, mark the hand, review it later, download the whole cards and see what they did. If you can do that at a very high level, you can succeed on ignition no matter how many bots are there. If you aren't doing some version of that, or having some way to like neutralize the bots, understand the metagame, decode profiles, you shouldn't play ignition. You just shouldn't. Screen name sites, the profile is the individual. You tend to build up HUD stats or reads over time. So you don't need to do this sort of metagame decoding work in the same way. You can approach it much more in a single human player, break down how they think, study their lines, literally look at your hands against them. I can never look for my hands against one specific person, but I can notice a bet sizing tell and filter for that bet sizing tell. And now whenever I see 69% earn bet, I could guess it's the same profile or the same bot or the same group of players. 10-20 game with less than 2 pros at the table, is that realistic? Yeah, for sure. For sure. You'd never get that sort of setup in New York. A number of the people that you are calling pros, I would not describe as professional. You want to turn those guys into fish. Like, if people are either just trying to be clownishly aggressive, or they're just not bluff catching enough and they're missing value bets and just sort of like letting you push them over, they're not pros. And most people are just kind of hoping you don't lean into where they don't want you to be, you know what I mean? Most of these live regs could not win like 200 L online. Maybe in the States, maybe, you know, varies, but, and couldn't, depends on how much they're willing to game select, but you understand what I'm saying. There's just a certain threshold of like pressure and fundamentals that they don't actually have, and when you have it, they crack immediately. It's like embarrassing. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't play those games. Sometimes the private games aren't that epic, but I kept making the mistake of giving way too much credit to people just because they're sitting in the game. redline playstyle particularly susceptible to bots? I agree with that, right? So that would be unrestricted redline, and that's also a way to pick up a whole bunch of free money against like a redlining meta online, because you get to a bunch of spots where it's like the average guy is slightly under bluffing and the redliner is way over bluffing. So you have bots out there just emotionlessly calling and doing some work to protect their range, and hell yeah. So I feel like if there is a fish bot thing, I'm giving away too much here already. But if you have a fish bot, what the fish bot does is looks like a fish and then just has value where usually the fish are capped. So you're like, oh, you're full of it, I'm gonna bluff you, and they just have it. A whole bunch more than you would think. But then they keep doing fishy stuff to keep you on the hook. And so that's the disgusting thing, is to make the most EV on Ignition, you want to know, okay, this is passive fish, this is aggro fish, this is bot fish 1, this is bot fish 2, and you have 4 different strategies. But yeah, basically in the short term, yeah, like max exploit blind redline is very exploitable. Whenever I check, you always bluff, I should check a lot. I should check a lot. I should let you bet for me a lot. I won't go into more of it than that right now, but yeah, you're on the right track there, I think. Poker's a vocation, I agree with that fully. And with it being a vocation, I would highly advocate for, again, making sure that you're learning and benefiting from it, like, as much as you can. Obviously, if you love playing and you're printing money, that's great, if it excites you. If you are learning from playing, fantastic, play more. I'm not anti-play, I'm not anti anything in terms of how you want to relate to the game. It's when you get to that point of diminishing returns. This is the trap I see people fall into, I guess. You learn so much and you work so hard to get a strategy together to win in a certain game, and then you feel kind of obligated to keep your strategy in this box. You feel obligated to not change it up too much, or you just go into power saving mode, and instead of learning, you think about kind of just how to waste less energy and how to print more easy money and how to find soft games. You no longer challenge yourself, because challenging yourself takes energy, has a high opportunity cost, like it kind of is risky. Maybe the new thing is worse. But if you don't let yourself make those mistakes and fail forward, even when it's not necessary because you made it, you will stagnate and you'll stop growing and you'll get unsatisfied. That might not be in terms of like poker lines and like sizings, but a lot of people up to a certain threshold it is. But I just mean other dimensions and like elements of life as well. Like you can just get to such a high level in poker that it's easier to sustain, or you can have like maybe really consistent growth. Maybe you grind like hell with no balance, then you make it and you grind a lot to kind of get your money together. Then you can afford to buy back some of your time, like collaborate with other players so you don't have to study as hard individually, and like new ideas just come in as upgrades. So it's like you're quicker to pick up new stuff, but you still have to be engaged in that process of reflection and like actually being interested in like learning more and not falling for this idea that you have figured everything out, or you will inevitably stop learning, start shutting up potentials, and then like crash or just get bored. So poker as a vocation, once you have the fundamentals and the strategy down and you're making like $100 to $500 an hour, now what? Like now, how can you continue that vocation? How can you keep learning and growing and moving forward? One aspect of that trap too is we're sort of forced, or like one path a lot of people go down is to just like hyper specialize. I'm just gonna go a third and then shove. Hope they have ace queen. I blocked the ace deuce suited is pretty funny. Yeah, they're a wide VPIP too. Nice. But, like, there's also, you know, there's just a lot of free money out there too. It was Ace Jack, we're so lucky. That's my graph. It's it hasn't been up to, I haven't had like a consolidated Ignition thing together. Like since I went to the UK at the end of that graph, like a year and a half ago, maybe almost 2 years now, I haven't had a consistent Ignition database together. But that was pretty much, that's pretty much the graph of my come up, I would say. Like that's, I think that's 200NL up to 2KNL when I was sustaining like a 10 big blinds dollar per hand win rate on the whole. Some of which, because I ran really well at 2KNL when I moved up. But the games were also great. I had the best time zone. I was just in the best shape, best form of my life. I really had created an insulated bubble around myself just to lock in and play at that time. And then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna travel the world with my girlfriend and coach. And that's sort of been what I've done since. But then I also fell into like a lot of what I'm talking about. Like I'm almost always speaking from experience, this easy money or just like printing, especially through play. Like I never phone in coaching. Like when I'm coaching, I'm all in. But then trying to go all in on coaching while still maintaining the same level of poker play and study, finding out how to balance all of that, because it is different. Like the way I do it, the way I approach it, how I learn, what I value, what that process looks like, parts are the same, but keeping that lifestyle together was something I sort of just like had to figure out. You're getting pipped, it's fine. But the thing was, like, on my come up, I didn't, like, I was aware, I was trying to progress, you know, I was trying to climb the ladder, but every day, all I focused on was, like, growing as a person and a player, like, getting more in tune with my emotions and, like, my self-awareness and why I was doing what I was doing, practicing and refining my schedule to get more aligned with, like, what's the version of me that is making the most money on Ignition Poker while only playing like 6 hours a day max, so that I can also tend to the rest of my life, was the mindset I had at that time. That like consistency of like basically playing as much poker as I could without burning out and not doing anything else to maximize that outcome. And then I went and I saw the world and I was like, oh, the opportunity isn't where it was. Like Ignition was not as good as it was at that time. I couldn't play it from the UK. Stars, there wasn't quite as much money. And I was like, I don't know if I want to sit here and like actually do the work it would take to like make $200 an hour on Ignition. Or like, sorry, not Ignition, GG Poker was like the UK option. It just didn't excite me. Like I'd climbed that mountain, I saw what people were doing, I saw the ceiling was much lower and it was like, okay, that isn't the direction. So I started doing a lot more exploring in a less like linear way. So playing more live, dabbling in tournaments, just trying all these different options, talking to people who reached a similar level of success in poker from very different directions and just being like, okay, you know, what's the next move now? But it's still tough to juggle that balance of like wanting to be creative and explore stuff and push myself while like also just delivering clear, concise, communicable like poker insight. I found myself stuck at one point in how I was approaching coaching of capping myself on a strategic level because I didn't want to progress so far past my students that I would like overwhelm them with strategic options. But what I've learned from traveling more and especially speaking to live players is you don't have to approach things, I mean, I knew this beforehand, but just feel more validated in it. You can have crazy success, understand the true essence of poker without being like a GTO nerd solver grinder, especially if you just are able to talk with people who do view the game that way and kind of pick it up. They're calculators that help you understand stuff. But like, you can absolutely be a crushing online player and an epic live player as long as you know how to actually know what your opponents are doing and deal with that whole dimension of live, deal with the pressure of the eyes on you, the live tells, stuff like that. Because a lot of people are just going to visibly not want to put in the $50,000 river bluff playing high stakes, even if they're good for it. But they'd be able to do that for the same amount of money online against tougher competition and not worry or not get punished for it. Is the pool still filled with bots on Ignition? I believe so. If you see an orange tag, they're a suspicious potential bot. But they could also just be fish, so this is the funny thing. There are, most of the regs end up presenting as like, most bots present as regs rather, but there are like fish profiles. I have to do some work on spotting the reg bots, but I haven't been playing a lot of Ignition. I'm kind of figuring that stuff out as I go along with you. I mean, I'm going to be doing most of that research privately. I'm not just here to like teach you publicly on stream how to crack Ignition. This is just what I'm doing right now, and I want to talk about poker. So this is what we're doing. Thoughts on PLO? Less saturated, probably better games. Worth playing PLO and Hold'em if you're going to be focused on live. If high stakes PLO games are running around you and you know it's mostly fish, like, you know, if you said, what game should I start playing now? There's great PLO games near me and there's PLO online I can learn. I would probably say study PLO, like, just in terms of a straight up, like big blinds per 100 availability thing. I won't fold in that one. Hey Sebastian, cheers for the kind words. Benjamelli's. I still eat cheese eggs every night. What are they complaining about? See, like, in live, you can just call this when you're deeper. The fun river. Well, we pick up equity. I like. Got him. Got him. There's a lot of spots you just have to have a hand. You know, just have a hand. That's one thing that's tough from like the redliner thing. There was a time where you could just you could just bluff those spots like all the time. You can't do that on Ignition anymore. You just can't. Too many goobies. Bet, you see, like, bet, call, second pair against that pot size river raise. But it's interesting, right? Because, like, I went pot, so I'm really polar. Am I checking two pair on the turn? No. So it's just the ace deuce, and I might only have ace deuce suited, or deuces. Like, if I'm doing that, I'm probably meant to, like, raise ace nine, like, just a decent top pair for pot, because when they go quarter pot, they are going, like, super, super thin. I don't know about the jack, though. The jack, that seems too thin of a hand to bet. But I say that, it's too thin to bet unless they're getting a really big overbluff, and then they're like inducing. But
Nigga tried to send a bitch, but she fuck with me. My baby girl 10 toes, yeah, she stuck with me. When she bring that fee in, we live in luxury. 2 twin Glocks, call them Zach. Think about it, pussy nigga, show me. Yeah, I heard about your partner working with the police. Dork, square, ran up on a nigga, now he living in a chair. My solution, prostitution, I'm a player. I'ma break the bitch, pussy nigga, you gon' pay her. I'ma break it. Blue lips, sink shits, pink strips. That shit crazy. Walk hard in my cup, no tricks. Sip a walk. Baby girl, I need some more. Where the tricks? That's for sure. She ain't got no money, we ain't fucking, I'm a dick. I said, get out. Nigga, we'll bring it to your dome at. For that chopper, I won't hesitate to blow that. Hey, nigga, where the pros at? Phoenix flexing, I be getting dope, but you know that. You a bitch, you a nerd, you a whole cat. Whole game full of punks.
Aces facing a 4-bet. Okay, dangerous but high equity flop, so you know, we just never have to get away from it. Check or bets? Kind of my board. I mean, 10s and jacks are shoving pre a lot for me, actually, so. An interesting one. That's a really, I really have to look at that. I have some ideas, but like I'm aware, like my ranging might just be completely off. Okay, we get another chance. Although we probably won't be able to cold call a 4-bet now. I feel like they are going to give me credit to have jacks and 10s there a lot, but do they just shove pre? Oh, hello. Oh, how could they fold? Hobbies outside of poker and Magic the Gathering. I do a lot of like rock climbing, like indoor bouldering. Been traveling a lot lately. I eat a lot. I'm just a yapper. I just like hanging out with friends and family and hiking and stuff like that. Like, other than those hobbies, because I'm pretty obsessive with those two. I put a lot of hours into. Yeah, other than like art or like creative projects. But like that's most of what I feel like I'm expanding into, like giving myself more permission to do more of, is just make what I want to make without thinking too much about what's going to come of it. How is this? Okay, if they have it, they have it. I'm never folding. There could be equity to deny. I block the queen jack, but they could just have it, obviously. Okay, we got it in with a free roll. Just printed 5% equity. That's a good spot against a fish. Like, yeah, that's fine. They have incentive to get it in to realize, but like I think I got a lot of queen jack. They're running into the nuts a lot. So or what happened there is, yeah, I just got to free roll. What if I have jack 7, queen 7? You're just, yeah. But again, they're never folding rivers. They don't need to worry about that play. They just have a straight and they're putting it in as a fish, but once you start defining your ranges that much, there are spots where like straights start mixing, or you have to work hard as solver to not have your opponent fold straights. Usually deeper, it's pretty rare. I don't currently have a well-informed opinion as to the amount of bots. This is my first session since getting back to Australia. I've been playing live for 3 months. Like, your guess is as good as mine. And what's more is, like, I will speak freely about like what's going through my mind to a certain extent with the bot stuff. But if I knew exactly what was going on with the bots, I would not tell you. And when I find out, I will not tell you unless you give me money to tell you, because this is what I do for a living. But you know, I respect the question. It's a good question, but I have to be cagey with that shit. Like the big thing that the bots have done, I don't think I've been talking a lot about how you need to know to like pick them out, and I think that's true if you want to like crush it. You know, you want to be we want to be pool selecting. But as long as you're aware that there's a risk that there are like imposters in the pool that are bots who are like kind of doing the opposite of what fish are doing, or using big sizes where regs tend to be like strong for that size and stuff like that. As long as you're aware that this is flipping in the meta and you try to not play too crazy of a strategy, you can still make money just like, sitting with the fish, because there are fish. And when the game gets less fun or more scary because of bad PR from bots, a lot of regs leave. I left for a while. There's less regs, there's more fish, beautiful ebb and flow. And the bots do have to limit themselves at least a little bit. They do. Like, if the bots don't limit themselves at least a little bit, they will be easy enough to detect, Like, you just aren't gonna have... You'll at least have to make a new account, and I know that, like, Ignition has made it hard for people to, like, set up new accounts to get rake back and things like that. Or if you get banned for a location thing, it's not, like, super, super easy to get another account. I've had people, know people who have had accounts, set up a new one, played on it for 3 months, then had their accounts frozen and their funds frozen for a year until they sorted it out. So, unless it is a full inside job, I don't want to give the impression that, like, the sky is falling. It's more like, it's not great and it's getting worse, and something has to change before it, like, gets better to the point where people feel confident playing online and, like, they can just play on a public site, go up to, like, 1K, 2K, 5K online and comfortably play. There are high-stakes sites that are doing that, but what I see is high stakes, or, like, you've made it, is almost cut off entirely from, like, aspiring grinders around, like, the low mid stakes. And I think that's natural if you just look at what someone who is trying to make it on their own, or someone who's trying to climb the stakes. There is so much risk to reg battling or playing on unregulated sites. It's just a difficult juggling act, and it doesn't make us the best people trying to navigate it. I imagine most of us would rather just log into a site, go to the poker room, play, and just, let it be easy. But navigating that's just part of poker, I do want to, like, talk about it less, because I have kind of beaten that horse to death, and it's a pretty straightforward, but I partially bring it up because that isn't something that, like, poker sites and marketing and the loud noises online tell you about, because all they're trying to do is make a noise to get you on their platform, whether or not it's in your interest. And yeah, no one should tell you where to go play, really. It's sort of like, gotta be a win-win thing. Australian coffee. American coffee is not the same thing as Australian coffee. Australian coffee, like Australian specialty coffee, outside of a few weird regions like South Korea, nowhere really compares. It's just a different drink. Like, these select sourced beans, you almost can't find them elsewhere. I have found some little gems in places like Dublin. There are places scattered around Europe, but not as, like, a culture that has taken off. So if you think you don't like coffee, or you do like coffee and you're American, you haven't tried real coffee. And interestingly, commodity coffee, like cheap coffee, just like regular beans that get burnt to hell and put in Dunkin' Donuts espresso and you buy from the supermarket, those are going to get a lot more expensive soon, but they're a completely different caste to, like, actually sourced, specialty grown, like, single origin coffee. So we're seeing an increasingly intense split into that, and commodity coffee might actually disappear almost entirely just due to the cost of producing these beans. If you are going to invest the resources into making coffee, it might only be specialty coffee, or we're going to see a rift of, like, new, really cheap coffee making methods for stuff like instant, while specialty continues to develop its own way. Oh, didn't even think about folding against my tiny raise. Maybe I had to go bigger. Had the right idea. What is Linus doing that makes him number one? I don't know. I don't know. I've never spoken to Linus. I can't claim to have knowledge to that, but I know he's obsessed with it. He's immersed with it. He's surrounded by other crushers. He's kind of fearless. And he he ran really well. So however you think you run well, you combine that. But I think part of it is you do just build up a legend and mystique from having momentum that you can hold on to. What's Linus doing? Yeah, I don't know. He's just very high level. You know, like he just gets the game at a really high level and works really, really hard at it. And you can think about it like your options are focus your entire life on beating Linus Love specifically, or just go and make your money playing a good game. Like poker is very rarely about direct competition. If you get disconnected, does your HUD still work after you reconnect? No, the HUD is just based on this seat at this table. So if I left, I'd come back, it would be a new numbers because it's only working on the data at this table. Yeah. So if you close the client or you close the table and rejoin, you get no HUD info. Similarly, if player 1 leaves, it resets player 1's HUD number at this table and it's a new profile. But like also, what makes Linus number one? Linus is not a consensus number one. Linus is viewed by the public to be number one and he's a great player. And I'm not saying he isn't number one, I don't know. I'm not qualified to say, I haven't really looked and tried to see. But I think like say Berry Sweet might be number one. There's pros who are up on Linus. Like even just this view of number one to me is like overly myopic. Everything is very contextual. Like you can be the best guy at playing the drunk who shows up at the same time at your casino every Wednesday. Like there might be no one in the world who is better at taking money from that guy than you are because you've played with him before, you've got that experience and you have a plan to take advantage of it. You adapt to the environment and the opportunities in front of you. Linus Love, from the position he went in, the momentum he took, he focused as hard as he could to the point where he was telling fish to leave high stakes tables so he could battle professionals heads up. He decided, he chose to be number one. That was his goal at a certain point over the money. He decided it was possible and it was going to be his objective and he stuck with it and he ran well enough to navigate it and meet the people around him and all of that. Because it's never one guy either. Like I'm sure, like Linus undoubtedly is a genius, a great player, but it's always Linus and his community and who he spoke to and the spots he was given and how he sort of ran through it. Not to detract from his achievement, that's true for everybody in any pursuit. But like I'm just trying to, I guess, like expand the inquiry to like look at that sort of stuff in a way of like, you know, what can you do to improve or benefit like your life? Using Linus as an inspiration rather than trying to copy his morning routine or something. This is, okay, so we face this click back again from two different profiles. It's a very weird move, but my hand's definitely a call. That's a really weird line. Click back, check river. It's a really cool line, but they're not getting me. I can see how you could absolutely hose someone. Oh, some fun people in chat. Japan has some good ones too. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the exact path or origin, but like East Asia as well, like Southeast Asia. I don't know if it's Australians or like mingling either. I don't know why Australia just like became such a hotbed of the culture. But yeah, the whole scene's relatively close. I think it's about a lot of it's where the best coffee beans are grown as well. Like Thailand is a great like region, that whole area. So Thailand and Japan and Australia all importing and roasting, and then like baristas from different regions traveling around and like starting shops and stuff like that is pretty cool. Options are focus your entire life. Okay, I banned the trolls. I wasn't logged in. Can I recommend a site that looks like someone from Singapore and easy transfer is in or out? That sounds like a legal liability, man. I don't know laws in different jurisdictions and stuff like that. I really have no idea. I'm kind of like, sorry, good luck. I can speak to the Australian market and I can speak to my experiences in Europe, but that's it. Like I got set up in the UK. I had trouble getting set up anywhere other than the UK because you tend to need addresses and stuff. The UK is pretty strict on that. So you probably want to look at crypto sites, which have their whole host of problems. Ace on the turn. They've got too much ace king that I don't want to triple my ace queen, so I'm going to check my ace queen. Kind of simple as that. A lot of hands don't need to really consider the whole of the strategy. This is really, really rough. I have to call my hand, and then a river shove would just be fucked. I think I'd actually fold. I think I'm just folding. My gut just says fold so strongly. It's like such a, like what else could it be? Are you doing this with ace queen? That's the risk, is he could have like ace queen. Obviously he could bluff, but it's just like, he would have to like check call jacks and then bluff it. Check calling nines, like 3-bet, check call nines, now bluff it. That's genius. But I think it's ace king trying to find a way to get it in. It's really interesting in spots like that because often when you look it up in Solver, the Solver strategy is actually incredibly defined, incredibly nitty. And so the Solver is just saying, I have basically ace king and bluffs. And then a human is like, they have ace king and not enough bluffs, or they're way over bluffing, or they're betting like a whole bunch of ace X because they didn't want to check and be confused. So you kind of have to go like, well, okay, half pot, donk, ace high turn, 3-bet pot. What are the odds he's a clown overplaying, and what are the odds he's just trying to play his hand face up and get paid by me if I have an ace? And I like being able to define those hinges and then again break those down later, because that's how you come to a decision rather than focusing all your effort on what would Solver do, which is step 1 of 0. Sorry, not 1 of 0, like 1 of like 3 or 4. Yeah. Yeah. That's a brutal one. That's a really brutal one. Because they have infinite available bluffs, but also when the king comes on the turn, it's not like they are short on ace X. And then the pair comes on the river, and every ace X is just the nuts. So it's like, that's the sort of spot where we will never get proof from a sample if we should call or fold, because we should always just usually lose bluff catch anyway. Big blind, 3-bet, slightly tighter player. I'm still going to call the suited ace, especially deep. Got him. The other thing with like having a process is it just lets you break down the decisions. It lets you define them. It stops being, let me just always make the right decision, or like never fold to a bluff, never miss value. Like you can't do any of that. It's not a real objective. But focusing on your line work, your decision making on the whole, how you play value against fish, just clarifying what's pulling you in certain directions and then either reinforcing or unlearning it. Again, all this requires that you have a stable, easy thing to compare it to, that you already understand the theory stuff I'm talking about, but I'm treating that as a given. Or there's already enough out there to like focus on that. Weird. Min donk, I'll just call. We're getting a fair price to showdown, so might call bluff catch. Yeah, good raise. Call. Bad river. We bet small, they raise big. We don't need protection. They can have bluffs. Yeah, I'm just gonna call. That's a really good turn. That's less sets and less 2-pair. We still beat value like queens. We just pay them. They have a speed, they have a speed. They check. We now have the option to check or to bet small. I'm gonna bet small. Check raise up there. Fold on that exact river. I think the min donks are very mergy. That's... Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, they just get all the money. Like, it's frustrating, but they get all the money. What's the biggest culture shock coming to America? Is like, I'm gonna get cancelled, man. It seems like you're all hostages to an insane game that if any of you stop playing, you die. And most people seem to celebrate or defend that idea. That's my intense way of saying it. I feel like outside of America, there is much less dogmatic, idealistic individualism. And that can kind of make things a little less boring or more boring, less polarized maybe. But I feel like what I'm saying applies pretty much everywhere in the world. But in the States, it feels really, really intense. Like when someone in customer support, when a server is incredibly nice to me, because they have to be, because if I don't tip them, they don't eat. That doesn't make me necessarily feel good about the exchange. Most people I interacted with were great, and I didn't feel as though they were like under duress or something like that. Like the quality of the customer service in a lot of places was pretty high. But just that little thing, just those little like elements of like service culture and everyone being a salesperson baked into all of it. That's what shocked me. it's just bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. Like the hyper self-confidence and self-assuredness it still stuns me every time I see it. I like it in a lot of ways, but just the ways I see that kind of like apply and like intermingle at different like levels, like how the incentives change. It's kind of weird at a cultural level. Because it's like everyone's like, yeah, the system's fucked, but I have to play in order to eat. And I have to pretend I like it in order to eat. And in Australia, most people will just say, nah, fuck that. Or at least it's a celebrated cultural norm or attitude to speak against that, even if we then ultimately do pretty much the same stuff. I feel like the cultural attitude is different. This could also totally just be my bubbles of how I intersected in America, but I feel like what I'm saying has a truth that like extends beyond that. I think there is a certain general truth to what I'm saying. I understand that was abstract, because it is more like a vague sense I have, and it is also a trend. It isn't the truth for like any individual, obviously. Totally talking about my sense of like social dynamics being different. The ace-queen fold was on a turn ace where they donked half pot and then shoved river after calling a flop bet in a multi-way pot. So it is like kind of a wild fold, but it's not like they have a lot of ace-king. They have a lot of ace-king. Like river would just be a completely different spot. That's why I'm calling out. I'm not trying to be pedantic. It's still a wild one. I'm still reeling. And when I look it up and I see that they had ace-king, it doesn't mean I was correct. But I'll assume I was correct. It's sort of a different spot. Like, again, I'm playing 200L on ignition. There's people you don't fold that against, but the average 200L ignition guy, I'd say so. And again, but more important than the play, I took a position, I told you why, I noted that it seemed kind of wild, kind of exceptional, and it's either really smart or a pretty big mistake. And I'm basing it off intuition, and I've never been there before. So now that's marked as a hand I need to get to the bottom of in terms of studying or just looking up the hand. And then if they are bluffing me, I will go, I was probably wrong about that fold. The next time I have that impulse to fold under a similar circumstance for similar logic, I will pause and go, am I making this up? Do I have a story in my head that isn't true? Or was I actually right and I should keep leaning into this and this is why I'm the GOAT? And it's that attitude of treating every spot that way, like just playing, man, just play, make choices, learn from the feedback that makes you inevitably a crusher over a long sample, inevitably growing, even if there's ups and downs, because, you know, you might evolve in a negative direction, realize you're wasting time and get out of it. But if you just look for efficiency and the safe line and the standard thing, or if you say, you can't fold top pair or what other like self-limiting heuristic, like you can never fold a set, you can never bluff a fish, you can never call an overbet. If you ever limit yourself with a belief or a perception like that and you don't investigate to break out of it, it defines you and limits you until you challenge it. And it's where people are being given credit for bluffs where they don't have them, or having value for a certain size, where people are overfolding or where they're overcalling because they're misperceiving your range and vice versa. That is the game. Like, that's the game. You need, like, it's tricky because you need the confidence to do it, and then also the humility and the curiosity to go out and try and, like, confirm or deny what you're doing. Sup, Connor? Golden open ender. I'm gonna fold, but this is another one where I think like it might actually be a really good bluff. Another example. Here's like a high-level heuristic, right? Or like another point to like not be super reactive. You might realize you don't bluff enough, and then you get to a spot and you're like, I'm not sure, should I bluff? You don't just have to bluff like every spot you're unsure or like shift your default like black and white like that. What you want to do is be open to the potential that what you're being pulled to do, what you're naturally doing, is probably going to be to underbluff. That you're probably missing some bluff spots. And then just witness yourself make whatever play, whichever fold, like, I know I need to bluff raise river more when they bet half pot. Mark that hand, and just like spend 5 minutes going through it. And then when you look at it in terms of what is solver doing, any data you have, or like talking through how pool actually plays with a friend, node lock whatever you actually then believe about that specific spot, and just see like, maybe bluff raising's comfortable and you didn't see the combo, or you didn't think of the size, or you didn't realize what you were targeting with that raise. And then you can just ask, do I think this guy has a stronger range than the solver? Or do I think this guy is hero calling more than solver, if his range is close? And then you see how you take a spot that's completely undefined and you come to a conclusion. And that conclusion will never be perfect, but if you get like 80% of the way 1,000 times in a focused way on the spots that you actually need to work on, you're a completely different player in that spot by the end of that process. If you do that for all of the spots that matter in poker, you do that for all of the areas in your life that are like significantly holding you back, and you look for that low-hanging fruit and you just keep upgrading, just keep doing a bit better, and it inevitably stacks to something like overnight you're sort of a different person. Like you become, incrementally you change like 1% a day, 5% a week, and then you're completely transformed. You know, that's strong, like completely transformed. Like you've now found yourself doing all of the stuff you need to do. You've evolved, you've broken through that level of the game. You've seen through the misperceptions that were holding you back. You got comfortable overbetting, you saw through the fear. You figured out something either more complicated or that required you to like let go of some precious load-bearing misconception, and you keep moving. And if poker's a vehicle for that, instead of like a wishing well that you hope is going to make you rich and solve all your problems with money, you might actually get somewhere. It's a vocation. Like, the money, in my opinion, if you're going to keep it, is a byproduct of understanding and actually being someone who the money will naturally come to as a result of your clear understanding of the game and your self-awareness. And then what you do with that is up to you, you know? But the money itself isn't gonna like ultimately fix, it's not gonna fix your life. If you need money, again, for like, you know, medical bills to put a roof over you, there's the essential, and I understand that. And like, that's the most important thing. But once you have the survival needs met, do not stay in survival mode. Don't like restrict your growth for comfort. And I would say don't even stay in like the poker box unless that's what you want to. Like, I think branching out, like even if you're not like a hyper creative, like you want to go a completely different direction than me and you love poker, I think branching out or diversifying, say like, even if your goal is more money, but if you just want a more like fulfilling life, do something else and combine two things. You can like work something else into poker, or use poker to fund a passion project that won't pay off, or you know, poker through a psychological or philosophical lens, or even like a performance optimization, like athlete type lens, like whatever helps you connect with it for like what you're really passionate about, and I guess like a self-development lens, or just what you want to like bring into the world. Because then it has meaning, then it's facilitating and enabling something like that. The best thing is community, I think, but community is hard to come by in poker because, I mean, it is still, the incentive is very profit motivated. So I think even just having people like you like hanging out with or talking poker with helps a lot. Like you're just like not alone in that journey. But I don't think it alone is going to take care of like these higher fulfillment needs. But it will just, you know, make work more fun. You don't want poker to be more isolating than it has to be. Like the amount of people who just grind and talk to no one on their computer all day. A lot more fun to just be able to shoot hands to people and pick each other up when it's rough. Hey Thiddy, yeah, we're kicking off coaching next year. DM me if you're interested, I'll send you some questions. Goes for anyone, yeah. New coaching flight is opening. So yeah, DM me on YouTube or like Twitter DM is easiest, or email me, I'll get to it eventually. I'll send you a couple questions, and if it seems like you're right for what I'm doing, schedule a call and like just talk things through, see if it's a fit. Got some options for players at like all skill levels. I sort of want to just like kill CFPs and have a direct way to just buy everything you need in terms of like the community, the information, the streamlined path, the direct mentorship and support to reach your goals in poker, whether that's moving up in stakes online or live, just like establishing that lifestyle. I've got a couple different tiers and specific courses worked out for what you need to say, be beating up to 200 L online, then like beating up to like, you know, high stakes live, stuff like that. There are these sort of thresholds I'm talking about. If you don't understand this thing, or you don't know how to like rein in your red line, right? You want to get to that point where you are the actual professional who understands your strategy clearly, has a process for improving, knows why you're doing what you're doing, and you understand like what other people are missing. That's a crazy call. Yeah, that sort of calls the wild call. Yeah, so the first tier, like entry level, I pretty much just present all of the key data, all of the key insights. What are fish doing wrong? What are low stakes players doing wrong? Where is the proof of their imbalances? And like a concrete map of the strategy they are playing, and then where they get lost and confused and where those decision points are. Imbalances backed by data. This is the stuff that all of the coaching for profit groups, all of the backing groups that have had mass success in exploitative pools have been doing lately. Well, and when I say lately, I mean over the last like 5+ years, the data wave sort of took over. And then what we've seen now is, especially with the bots going on and using this data, the data strategy is kind of getting dried up. Just data, just like get to the river and always bluff, or never call here, always call here, they always have it, they never have it. Everyone using the same sizings. All of these things are really weak to like the bot meta and just players who understand the data stuff. Like if I know that you like over bluffing here because people fold too much, guess what I'm gonna do? You know, guess how I'm gonna react if I know that about your game. But there's just the straightforward like theory blueprint lines, which are basically a straight hack to reach parity. Like you will understand what most online professionals are doing and what they're doing wrong, catch up to them like that, matter of months. And then you have that resource to pull on. There's only a few things you need to actually see to like have that click. So I'd say that's layer one. Now you like just, you have the data, you have the map hack, you've sort of just like shot through to here's the current state of the metagame. Then we work more into actual like solver theory balance stuff, just understanding on a more subtle level if people can kind of adjust what is baseline, what is close, so that we can now start like adjusting and picking spots against specific opponents. How can we get rid of all of these weaknesses and these oversimplifications in our own game while continuing to exploit them just as hard in like subtler, more refined ways against the guys who are kind of just trying to be lazy and like autopilot through and not really change anything. If you can do that, you can beat all stakes live. There's different elements to like the live skill set and the difficulty, but there is not a live game where people are going to be beating you on a technical level once you understand just how poker is actually operating under the hood. And when you can do that, then you can sort of break down and define any spot, answer your own questions, and actually start developing line work and game plans and doing pool research on your own. And now you're actually creating and innovating in the game with other players at that same level who have gone through that process, who are that vetted. And so you go from basically map hacking your way to where you actually want to be online now, so you can at least have it be a profitable hobby, if not something you turn into a profession. Then there's the higher level, like how do we actually beat pros and keep moving forward and refining our own game. And then there's like cutting edge, like nerdy, passionate, top of the hill. How do I beat great players on PokerStars? How do I be the reg no one wants to fuck with? How do I make more money with less effort? The sort of like macro skills, because now you actually sort of have mastery. And now it's all just about doing development and actual work, you know, market research, instead of learning how to play poker. It becomes like entirely exploitative. And the cool thing about that is it does work live and online, because we're talking principles, we're not talking about cookie cutter memorized strategies. Yeah, so those are the course materials I'm putting together. Basically, we're going to do weekly lectures, going to have like a few people in the team answering questions and helping me run group coaching and lectures and helping people along that path. So we're going to be doing sort of coaching flights and in groups of people at a specific level and really helping them integrate that material as quickly as possible and take shots at the next level in their game. So you can be studying, learning, and then implementing and getting that feedback and support as you're trying to, say, put it into play at the higher stakes live, at that next shot online, because there's that whole mindset dimension. And then once you've gone through the course or whatnot, or you've already worked with me for a long time, there's those weekly lectures where we're going to be studying the same stuff together, implementing new principles, checking in on the metagame, talking about mindset, all that sort of stuff. Because I feel like, yeah, that community, that like part of it's accountability, but a lot of it is just, a lot of people who get into poker, like they're not that inspired to study a bunch like on their own. It can be kind of hard to find that motivation, or even just the decision fatigue. Like if you want to be out there, I mean, I know how hard it is. Like I have to create my own study routines for the most part. I slide coaches like quite a lot. Because to actually just do all that work yourself while you're still trying to play like 20 or 30 hours of poker a week, that's a lot less efficient than just having someone who's a level or two further along the road than you, or has already solved a lot of these problems, say, kind of, here's the answer key, here's the reasoning, let's work together to like bridge that, or see like, how are you going to apply that? How far are you going to take it? Here's the exploit, but how do you hide it? Oh, you don't need to hide it against that guy. Oh, where's the biggest leak in your pool? Oh, these guys don't understand this principle. That's why they're doing this. If you exploit them this way, they'll never see it. And no one else in your pool is doing that. You know, it's like so sick. It's so exciting when you get to work on the game on that level compared to clicking buttons and like waiting for hands, you know. I find even just like a couple good study sessions a week completely shifts my relationship to the game, because I'm excited to like battle test some stuff and just think through spots. I'm really playing the game and I don't care as much about the outcome, instead of just playing for the money. Hey, BT worked. How did the US trip go results wise? I will post something about that soon. Nothing too exciting. Spoiler alert.
Do me a favor, pick me up, take me out later. Don't worry about no paper, 'cause I got my stacked up for nights like this. My life can get crazy, I deal with shit on a daily. But baby, I'm thinking maybe we could agree to work it out like this.
I've been thinking about this check raise here. I don't know how insane it is. I'm not going to do it if they call, but...
I can't say I'd give my all,
It's like 30 degrees.
but tonight I'd
Do I ever play higher than 200 on Ignition? Not recently. I haven't played on Ignition in like 2 years. I'm not gonna dive in to Ignition like 1K streamed like whole cards up until I'm pretty confident in that pool, if you know what I mean. Right now I'm playing 200 L and riffing in real time. The things I'm talking about might help someone win more money against fish or the regs like in the pool, approach it generally. But the things I'm saying are not gonna help anyone win money against me. If I tell you how I'm playing 1 and 2K, how I'm playing 5K and L live, like down to the detail, the strategy, that's the sort of thing that someone like a high level player can actually directly capitalize on against me. So fortunately, took a few mistakes in that direction, but I figured out where I should probably hold my tongue in terms of giving too much information away. From 2021 to 2023, I made $1 a hand on Ignition.
Doing shows all around the country, no Tordo. Getting cash in hand, I want more dough. Import, draw, and draw smoke. My eyes red like Pascals. Playing the field like Pascals. Sitting in the middle of a Mario. I came through with 9-3 like Pascals. 9-3 forever from the M14 zones. I came through with 9-3 like Pascals. 9-3 forever from the M14. I came through with 9-3 like Pascals. 9-3 forever from the M14.
We can call this twice. Ace deuce. We don't block bluffs. 7x and check back flop a lot, but not actually always. And obviously there's 2 of them there, so it's kind of hard to have one.
I see the gap in your defense like boss goals. It's always after your actions at your talk shows. I'm out and about, not sitting watching talk shows. Vacation to Bordeaux, this country I'm in Bordeaux. Met a Spanish girl,
and we win.
She smoked my suit and tell them Bellandon me off a draw, yo. I was flying back to England, more broke, reminiscing with memories flashing like Morse code. All I got in this world is my world. City singing orders at 18 like the boss goes. When my niggas be all broke, performing at these small shows. We grafting and we love it all, yo. I came through with 9-3 like boss goes. 9-3 forever from the M14 zones. I came through with 9-3 like boss goes. 9-3 forever from the M14. I came through with 9-3 like boss goes. 9-3 forever from the M14 zones. I came through with 9-3 like boss goes. 9-3 forever, 9-4. Yeah, 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 1-4. 9-3 from the M1. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 9-3 from the M1. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Check the top pit. Pretty damn good turn. I would expect... Oh, they're kind of nitty. Yeah, no, we can't cap them entirely. I was going to say, expect no king-queen from them, but that's not true. It's not too much. I am just going to raise against the fish, though. This should also define them pretty well. But yeah, like they can't have like many sets and stuff. Right now this is a plus 5-6. 7-8 already got there. Obviously they could have king-queen. They're not raising much at all. But they can have 10-9. I mean, they can also have 7-8, which sucks. Yeah, they lead again pretty large. Shoving now feels ambitious. I would need them to call ace-jack. If they have ace-jack here all the time, and they're gonna call it, then I could obviously shove. But they don't just do this with all the ace-jack. So this might be nitty, but again, I think they have like 20 combos of straights. 4. Okay, that was surprisingly wide. And this is where I could just be really important, like I'm just verbalizing some of what's on my mind at the time there. The more I talk, usually the more I want to be like careful and take my time on review to like just really define their range and ground what I'm focusing on. Because each of those things I said was kind of just like a little nudge of to like, do I think they have them? Do I think they not? Like that's really the key. Reading the patterns in the line and like the vibe, I guess, the subtleties of whether they're going to have them or not. If I'm in a fear-based mindset, I'm more likely to be pessimistic and give them less top pair that bet calls. If I can define that that's a consistent pattern and I'm always doing that, and I should always just raise top 2 in that sort of line, then I wouldn't even need to think about it, right? But there's a whole range of like clarity and conviction in between there that like is what makes making a poker decision kind of funky. We could just call to keep the fish in. I think they're going to call twice a lot. I think I want to go a little bigger. Okay, this is also sus. So the like this could be bot shenanigans, or it could just be a tight reg and the bot's just running it now. Yeah, see this, right? That looks like a whale. How often have you seen a whale do that in your life? Why is he dumping chips to this fucker? What the hell did we just witness? And it's hands like that security will see and say there's no way they're a bot, but I don't think there's no way they're a bot. I'm not saying they are a bot, but there's more than like a 30% chance. What I'm using is just Hold'em Manager 3, and I've just tweaked some of the settings and added some stats in mine. This is cuspy, but I think I'd rather have 5s because it just has more backdoors. It's just like a 5 I can just check raise on the 4 and the 3 more happily. So when they go big on the flop, I don't think I have to call all my like pairs with a backdoor just because equity against ace-x is so bad. But that's also where, again, solvers help a lot, because one thing I learned from out of position defending is you defend out of position, seems bad against a bet, but when they check turn, you profit when you bet river. So if you can withstand the float, you get a lot of EV in the turn check line. So you might, that's why you float backdoors basically. Why do you float the backdoor flush draw when they like range bet small on a regular board? Because you're going to be able to bluff it on the river a lot of the time. You wouldn't just play it for the flush draw. And so again, you can piece together all the defending lines. It says 0 EV here, but if I get to bluff river more, it's plus EV. I just blew your mind. Now you can make an exploitative flop decision without actually having to brain solve, like, forever. There's a million pieces like that, just to like tie all these threads where the game is now a cohesive whole that you're playing, instead of an endless whack-a-mole guessing game of noise, like, which is really where most people end up most of the time, just lost. And with that, my camera is out of battery. We've been going 2 hours. So we'll sit out this orbit. Also the whale left, so yeah, 2 hours, that's my usual session time. This feels like it's lined up. Cheers everyone, expect some more of these. Not guaranteeing much of a schedule over the holidays though, but your boys decided to go into the full-time coaching and content. I'm still going to be playing plenty of poker. I don't think I can play less than 20 hours of poker a week and don't look at myself, but at least between playing and studying. But pretty much, yeah, the more I like play and teach poker, the happier I am, and the more I just play poker, the less happy I am. So I've made up my mind.
my soul get a lift as I smoke on a spliff. I'm doing something wrong, I don't know what it is. When I'm looking in the mirror, I don't know who it is yet. Life a bitch, ain't even got a click wet. Times money, funny how it's different, how they get spent. If it stays like this, I'll probably go mental. So I chase money, can't make sense. I'ma define my own limits. If I bring pan to this ride, I won't win it. Combining weed in the mind, it's like spinach. On a deep thoughts weighing on your brain, did you get it? I ain't praying for fame when I get in. I'm just praying for change when I get in. I ain't praying for fame when I get in. I'm just praying for change when I get in. Yeah. Where's my seat? I'm trying to roll one on. Tell the feds that we don't give a fuck. They tryna lock us up for what? But I don't let it get me down. We let it free my mind. I'm just stuck in the system trying to get out. So come and follow me on this odyssey.
Oh yeah, how'd we do? Damn. Ran a big bluff on the flop. Filter by net 1 and loss. Mentally decompress it. So yeah, one thing I like to do, I don't tend to do like super intensive study right after the session unless I am feeling it. But learnt this from Matt Marinelli. Well, learnt bits and pieces of this from everyone. Matt Marinelli sort of taught me just to focus on reviewing all the biggest pots with a decision. You can't review every hand, so make sure you're not spewing in like 3-bet pots and stuff where there's more on the table, where it's easier to have like your mindset stuff go wrong. But rather than like fully resolving every hand, I can just clear any emotional residue if it's there. Like I feel pretty good about the session, but like where did the money go? Eights, bet call, check, check. That's not the pot. Oh no, it's reviewing it in the wrong order. Not the biggest one first. Yeah, so you can just review the biggest ones, go through all of them, and just see what's still sticky. Like when you look at it again, do you still have questions? Do you still have feelings about it? I don't know about this size, I think I'd go bigger. Small bet, call. I mean, yeah, I was just tripling. The plan makes sense. They had ace jack, so that was like a funny hand. How lucky for me. Hey, look, good things happen too. It's not just bad beats. I can actually open my mind. Sorry, the music's too loud. I can actually open my mind to like the good variants as well by paying attention. Aces, 3-bet call. They hit a set. They raise, I call. I'm already like, oh no, a set. Okay, 5, can't ever fold. Obviously, they do still have 10s, 6s, 5s, probably, I mean, not in full, because they won't always raise them. 6-5, get a raise a lot of the time, no less of them. So they have like, you know, up to 10 nutted combos, but then they also could bluff. They also could have a worse hand like queens, so the combos line up really easily, so aces never folds, it just is too good. They have worse for value, end of conversation. So I end up betting and they check jam, and it's like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't know how they're bluffing, but they obviously could have bluffs. They could still have jacks. Who cares, right? So I've got no concerns about that hand. I know fully what was going on. I would never play it differently. Nothing to learn. Big pot. Nothing to learn. This one. Okay, so this is a big bluff one. So these ones are interesting. This is where data understandings of the spot help. Having a structure for how you select your bluffs help. Just having conviction in the spot, and then also because it's a bluff spot, top of mind, like most spots are going to be close unless you have a really good reason to go for it, or like you know about an imbalance. But that's okay, right? So this is one I would spend some time going through the solver. This is one where like, this is still wrinkling my brain. I'm not going to go through it now because TMI, but yeah, check raise, bet. I'm just thinking it's like a pretty solid bluff combo and that I shouldn't assume that they are over calling 6x, because if we just look at this spot, how often do they have a 6x? I think like a lot. The problem is they also have a lot of straights and stuff, so this board might be so good for them, but I should be more careful. The macro resolution, like big picture, no perfect answer, would be, if I don't think they're overfolding, I have to be careful with bluffs. If I think they're underfolding, I have to be very careful and lean more draw heavy, be much, much, much more careful on the whole, basically. So I'd look for like an average plan for this line as the upgrade, not like, does king 5 of clubs raise? That would be what very bad study. What does my hand do? What you want to do is, what's my plan in this spot? Do people overfold to the check raise barrel line? Do I want to pick this hand against this man to do this? What are my alternative options? Do I like any of those as much or more? If there's 2 equal options and you're over aggro, maybe just check, bro. If there's 2 equal options and you're too nitty, maybe just bet, bro. Now you're more balanced. And not only are you more balanced, if everyone knows you're a nit, you're making more money. That, of course, isn't a rule, but it's something to keep your mind open to so you don't keep defaulting into the same predictable patterns. Okay, funny one. Face a large donk, which is unusual. Raise, call. They bet turn, they bet river. I shove, they called. I can't even remember what they called. A6, bets, call, check, bet, call, check, donk, raise, but I don't shove, and they snap call. This is the sort of thing where it's like, that to me is a bot play. Call, donk, very unusual. And then to call the raise, most unusual. But this is a spot where you're meant to overbluff according to data against fish. So it's very rare, and it's very clever, so I think it's probably a bot. Deductive reasoning, my dear Watson. But I am making a lot of assumptions there. And then this is the... Okay, I'll stop on this one, because I had the bluffing hand I had a question about, and then was this one. I check because we're multi-way and I want to let them bluff into me, slash like they are just going to have queen-jack offsuit, so it's not really a 3-street value hand. They bet small. I don't want to let them just like bet a queen or a king and see a river for free, plus they are going to have a lot worse for value, also stuff like 9-8, a lot of mergy stuff, so I want to raise. And I should probably even raise bigger than this, to be honest. This is totally fine, but I could even raise bigger. I'm not going to sweat on that too much. Now we get to the river, and they donk. Large, but not huge. And then this is where I might be just paranoid, because I've been seeing the bots show up with such good hands. These are the spots that make me sad about the bots, and I need to... This is part of why I'm doing this review, right? Because against a whale, it's just a shove. I don't know how the bots are playing in reality, and I don't know how hard it would be for the bots to be inducing me here. My suspicion on looking at this hand is that I did just get paranoid, and I should just shove and accept the fact that I'm beat sometimes. And then I think the key for ranging, like for the viewer at home, right? I talked about this in terms of like live players being nitty, and here I am falling into maybe a slightly subtler version of it, or maybe exactly what I'm complaining about weak live players doing. So let's see, how many hands do they have that beat me? Because I have like near nuts, so how true is it? How many hands have to call me, and how often do they beat me, right? So the straight comes, and I have top 2 pair. How capped is this guy? Can he have 5s? Yes, he can, because he limp called, and he was out of position. So he can have all the 5s, all the 9s, maybe jacks. I would say less jacks, especially because I block the jacks, we're not that worried. He also has all of his top pair, all of his 9s, all of his backdoors, so many hands. So yes, he can have all of them, but we're on the flop, it's early on, so it's a lot of strong hands and a million weak hands that we want to be happily betting against. We get to the turn and he bets small. What can we learn about this? When he bets small, does he still have 5s? Does he still have 9s? Does he have 10s? Does he have jacks? I would say way less likely. Does he have king-queen, which is the hand I was worried about? When he bets 3 big blinds, way less likely. I want to pause again though, because if they're a bot, I do think there's a chance that they might actually do that with all their king-queen. But I want to emphasize, there is a chance they're doing that with all their king-queen. If I assume they're doing it with their king-queen because I'm scared, I'm just going to start missing value. And so this is the nature of how like just fear is skewing my ranging and then making me play worse. Because, you know, I'm capable of bluff shoving, obviously, I'm talking about it. Other people who just never actually think about bluffs and value or thin value, they'll just default and not even consider it. It's uncomfortable to have to face close decisions where the right decision gets punished a lot. So people tend to avoid it. So yeah, basically they bet small. So this is where I think I should have decided they really don't have many nutted hands. But when I raise, then we get to the river, I've decided they do. Yeah, so I raise and they call. And again, they called. So they're going to raise a lot of king queen. They're going to raise a lot of tens, a lot of jacks. So once they bet small and call, they have hardly any hands that beat me. Even 7-8, they have hardly any hands that beat me. The 6 comes, this doesn't change anything. And now they lead. So because of the action and the small bet call, I think I do pretty much have the nuts. Therefore, I should shove and just hope they call a hand like this, or king jack, or whatever, like any random jack. And we have seen this player, he called 8-6. He called 8-6 to bet, donk, call. I don't know if that was before or after. It was actually before. So if I was paying attention, I know that this player is capable of making some crazy hero calls. So even though the line is different, and I know it's different, if this is a fish, the fish isn't thinking like that. The fish is just like pair and straight blocker and you're crazy. Like, he's seen me bluff. He's seen me do bluff raises. So I'd say it's like 50-50 if he calls this hand if I shove or not. He might even usually call. But because I was trapped in like, oh, I don't know what to do, how do I keep myself safe? How would I play it? I'd disconnect myself from the reality that they just bet small and called on the turn, and so I have the nut. And you see how stupid I look breaking that down? Do you see how, like, absolutely stupid my reasoning seems in contrast? Because in reality, I missed something really simple. But in game, I was like, oh, 6 spot, bro. And so the more hands like that you find, where once you review it and break it down, it's actually just clear as day that you missed, and then you don't miss them anymore, you make it absolutely standard to not miss value, to not miss slam dunk bluffs. When you stop missing the clear spots, and you either make spots clear, or you assert, you decide that they're either too complicated for you to solve, or they're just close to break even and you don't need to worry about them, take that neutrality as an active position, and then try to actually just take a side. Even if you land at balance, you're then doing it proactively instead of from the defensive standpoint of, I can't do better than GTO, and I'm probably playing as well as I can. I see this in Magic too, and I remember from my Magic experience, the amount of games people lose just because their brain explodes on turn 12 and there's like too many creatures on the board. The same thing happens when raises go in poker. Like limp, ISO, multi-way, bet raise, call, river, donk, a size I've never seen. And my brain has to filter that straight into like something kind of sensible and grounded. Or, I don't know what's going on, but I know that I probably have the best hand now that you bet called, like quarter pot. And if I have the best hand, I should put all the money in. Very clean. I feel like I just untied a knot. You can do this now. You can do it more efficiently with other people. Coaches can way streamline this. But just engage with your hands. Just engage with your hands. You probably don't need more software, more tools, a more complicated thing to work on. You probably need to get simpler. Or you need to invest in just that fundamental, like, theoretical knowledge, either through time or paying someone to hold your hand through it. Because once you have it, the game changes. Once you've actually like seen how the game is functioning. So yeah, peace out. More stuff coming soon. DM's open for coaching. I've seen all your messages. We'll be replying to people who have already emailed me soon, and we will be kicking off in the first month of the next year.